What's going on YouTube? You already know who it is, baby. Scott Daddy, Hero King. Super excited to bring you guys yet another video on just where Hero stands in terms of like the latest meta. Um, this video is gonna be a little bit informal, I would say more than formal, but it's gonna have three different parts. First and foremost, I want to actually go ahead and quickly recognize some of the new support that we're going to be getting in Supreme Darkness that I'm very excited about with this deck. And I'm sharing with you guys three different deck lists as well to accompany that around what I'm thinking in terms of where Heroes stacks right now with the current meta and latest support from Rage of the Abyss. And then also talking about post Supreme Darkness, what I'm actually thinking about when it comes to this deck and the cards that are going to be coming out of that set. And of course, we do have some intel from the OCG to back up how these cards are being used and how to optimize around it for the formats. So yeah, very excited to bring you guys this video. A little bit of a face reveal for this one, so that's also exciting. Um, so that'll be the first part. The second part, we're definitely going to talk about. I want to talk about hand economy as well as how to actually navigate the deck when it comes to managing interruptions in such a hand trap heavy format. So that's going to be the second part. And then third part, I do want to, last but not least, show off the three lists that I'm considering when it comes to post Supreme Darkness. And then one of the lists is actually right now where my deck actually sits in terms of the current format where I think Heroes stacks up in the format as a general. Is it playable? Is it got its own weaknesses? Is there things that I wish would be different for the deck in this format? Things like that. Awesome. So without further ado, let's actually take a look at my current list because I do want to talk about how my mindset is positioned around this deck based off of how I approach hand sequencing, how I approach pushing through different hand traps, how I approach the deck in terms of deck building, as well as the play style of the deck against certain matchups in the current meta. Um, and then I think it's really key to start the conversation with that first and foremost, because that is going to, like, that pretext information is going to shape what I'm about to share with you guys in terms of my deck choices post Supreme Darkness with the new Evil Hero support. So right off the bat, you're going to notice I'm playing a flush 40 deck list for the current format that we're in. Completely board breaker approach, no hand traps. Right now, the format that we're in is heavily dominated by hand traps, as you guys are aware. Decks such as Tempai and anything that's Azamina related, whether it's Fire King or Snake Eye, can hold a lot of hand traps. Centurion is also prevalent in the format that also has a lot of has a lot of hand traps in that deck. People are playing anywhere between 15 to 18 to even sometimes 20 hand traps within their main deck, and then potentially even more on the side. Full disclosure, I don't think this deck sits in the best competitive space right now. I'm still playing it, but I will say I am very excited about the upcoming release of the Supreme Darkness support, which I'm very excited to talk about. But again, it's important to kind of set the pretext on where we stand today with this current deck and why my deck option and my deck building looks the way it is. So right off the bat, we're maxing out on all the starters except for Emergency Call. I just don't think that's a good card, and it's Droll Food. Second of all, we are also doing very well in terms of non-engine with the Book of Eclipses to dodge, the droplets to break boards. Eclipse can also break into boards as well. We also have our Call by the Grave and then two copies of Talents. Again, cards that are good, both going first and second. Talents in a game state where you're able to push through the first hand trap is really nice because it just means that you're going to get that hand knowledge and you're able to potentially rip an additional hand trap out of their hand in a heavy hand trap format. And then also then it'll allow you to kind of customize your lines of play to suit whatever threats you can and cannot handle against your opponent, right? I'll also do a quick combo of like what my current M board is. It's, your typical stuff, DPE, Dark Law, driver, set favor contact, and then any non-engine, whether it's Eclipse or the droplet that I might draw into with the help of Liquid Soldier. No win Karibo, you guys know where I stand on that. I do like Liquid Soldier. Sometimes he's a very good normal summon as well. No Pot of Prosperity. Sorry guys, I just don't want to banish my extra deck in a fusion-based combo deck. It's just not going to be me anytime soon, unfortunately, and I have tested it. But to each their own. Do your own thing, guys. Um, yeah, pretty standard deck. I'm very happy with it. The choice of 40 is also really key here in terms of maximizing our likelihood of how often we get access to our Vision hero line of play, which is going to be kicked off by either a Hero Lives, Stratos, or Ferris. Again, typical lines of play through those cards. You know, Ferris leading into Increase, Increase into Vion, Vion dumping whatever you need, whether it's Shadow Mist, Mali, Denier to get you also your Polymerization, and then to get into your fusion plays that way. I wanted to do just a flush 40 just to maximize how often I was seeing my power spells, such as a Hero Lives, in case we get hit by Shifter, if they're playing Tempai, which is a very, very popular deck, or if um, I wanted to land on Bakuska if we get hit by the new Molcharmy, Molcharmy Fodros. If I'm getting hit by the old Molcharmy, more often than not, I'm just going to actually try to deck them out and see where it goes, just because the old Molcharmy is only 1 to 2 draws, which is not that bad. Still not great, but not that bad. The other reasons for the choice of a flush 40 here is it's going to improve our probabilities to the highest extent of actually seeing Fusion Destiny as a backup line of play if our main line of play for our vision line is stopped. And in a heavy hand trap format, that's going to happen quite often, unfortunately. So the deck is okay, but it's not positioned well in such a mid-range format where like a lot of decks that are mid-range, like a Centurion or like a Voiceless Voice, are going to be really good, or even like a Tempai. Like a Tempai is a beatdown deck, but the engine relatively plays mid-range, or like the combo's not that complicated once they get two dragon bodies on the field, for example. So that's where the format stands, guys. Like it's rewarding those decks with small engine count that don't have to do too much to get where they need to be in terms of like their actual main engine. They can play a lot of non-engine. Fortunate with Heroes that we don't have that privilege. So yeah, we've opted into a 40 here. Plenty of non-engine in shape of board breakers, but also cards that can help you go first, such as the Eclipse and the Talents. And then you'll also notice the last thing I'll say here is double polymerization just to improve the probability of still going into our fusion plays if the vision line is stopped, or in the case that you get hit by Dominus Impulse by a good player who is very knowledgeable in terms of where the choke points are for this deck, and they're potentially thinking about hitting your polymerization. So having two polymerizations is actually quite nice because it gives you that flexibility and allows you in some cases to get away with not having to actually summon out Vion or even try to attempt to resolve the Vion to be able to facilitate your fusion plays, which is really key here. The other aspect that I also want to talk about is related to Vion. Once we do get into the part of the video here where we'll talk about the new Supreme Darkness support, you guys are going to notice that unfortunately Vion is still quite a key piece of this deck and is also at the same time a big weakness to the deck. And I'll get into more of that. I don't want to spoil the surprise. The extra deck is quite standard, nothing too crazy. Double Law, two cards that allow you to facilitate Fusion Destiny. No Ab Zero, one Wake Up is fine. We are playing the Blast. Just there will be people in the competitive scene who are less like a regional, who are less competent in heroes, who will potentially try to stop like your Stratos with Ash or even Imperm. Obviously, we know it's incorrect as hero players, but it will come up. And then the rest of the cards are essentially either more board breakers in the shape of Evenly or thrust targets going first, again, to counteract any cards such as the new Molcharmies or the dimensional shifter that's very prevalent in Tenpai. Um, and yeah, so again, more breakers on the side, more cards to allow you to break or extend. Thrust is just godly as well in the deck because it allows you to add Fusion Destiny and then a Dark Angel, of course. So yeah, I got the list down to 40. I'm loving it. It's clean. It does everything that you need, and it's kind of like a no BS list. It has everything going for it without any added noise, so to speak. Cool. So let's head into my two lists that I have also for you guys for post Supreme Darkness. So the next portion of this video is I want to talk about the new support that we're getting, what I think is actually viable. And so I'll start off with the big list first. I personally think the best cards that we're getting out of the new support is obviously going to be your Evil Assault first and foremost. This card is easily a three of in everybody's deck, in my opinion. It's just going to be a starter slash extender for the deck, and it easily pairs with your one copy of Evil Hero Doom Prison, which is going to allow you to do um, the following of two things. So you're either going to use your add dusted gold into Evil Assault into Doom Prison to be able to either add to your hand or special summon the Doom Prison to be able to dump your Malicious or your Shadow Mist into the graveyard. And the reason why this is key um, for the first value that you're getting out of this package in the deck is these two cards in the graveyard are essentially either a quick bridge into Vion or it's a quick bridge to Malicious to be able to get more bodies on the field to facilitate your Link climb plays. Um, you're also going to notice this build particularly, I'm also running the Sinister Necrom with the Infernal Rider. This is key because that also then gives you the option with Doom Prison to dump the Sinister Necrom to go into the Infernal Rider to be able to gain the added value for your end board through the Evil Hero package. And in this case, it's going to be the addition of super polymerization to your end board, but more often than not, it's also going to be primarily your Dark Supremacy. If you don't know what these cards do, your Dark Supremacy is a non-target, no, target physical cards will go a targeting negate, so it's almost like an impermanence, but it could target any cards, right? So it's better than an impermanence. It could even target like an Evenly Match, for example, or a Dark Ruler No More. So this card is actually addressing parts of the deck that were missing, right? We did have the counter trap that was searchable off the Spirit of Neos for heroes, which was protection of the elements, I believe, but unfortunately, that counter negate, although it's quite good, it really lent itself well if you're playing the Neos version of this deck. So one thing to keep in mind is I'm talking about the Supreme Darkness support in context of the classical Omni Hero stuff, which is your Vision line of plays as well as like your Fusion Destiny line of plays, things like that. The other aspect, obviously, is super polymerization. This is going to tag really well with the new Evil Hero Neos Lord that's coming out in Supreme Darkness. So this one is a nice body removal, which is, if you have your Elemental Hero Neos, hand or field, doesn't matter because it's super poly. Choosing one from other field. Sorry, I stand corrected. You're going to need Neos actually on the field, or in this case, with Neos Lord, it is a card that mentions it, so you're gonna either need to have your Neos on the field, but more often than not, you're gonna have your Shining Neos Wingman on the field to use as fusion material to be able to remove one body from your opponent's side of the field, because it says, +1 effect monster on the field. So in this case, you're never gonna use your own, you're gonna probably want to use your opponent's card. So it sets up like a nice layer of interruption to do like a spot removal. And then I believe the Neos Lord as well is going to you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, take control of it. It also is another spot removal after it's summoned by its summoning effect. Okay. So it's not bad. I like it. And again, I put it in this build for a reason. It's not bad. But what I'm actually more excited about is the target negate because this is gonna take care of a lot of problematic cards that the deck loses to, which is a lot of the blowout cards, like the Dark Luminal Moors, the droplets in some cases, and like the evenly matches of this game, or even talent. Sometimes like your full end board completely loses to talents, right? Which is a problem. Um, so very excited for this card. Very searchable off of Adusted Gold or your Infernal Rider, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and this deck is nice. This list is very nice because we're also maxing out on the Adusted Gold, so it gives you like a lot of options to actually use the Adusted Gold and to get into your Evil Assault, or to go for Adusted Gold to just easily tutor out the Dark Supremacy Negate Trap altogether just immediately. It's also a starter, right? You're kind of maxing out on your Evil Assault, which is a nice starter. But this is also technically a starter because it gets you into Evil Assault, which gets you into the Doom Prison, which can easily bridge into your Vion as well as your Malicious to get back into your standard classical Vision Hero plays or like your Fusion Summon plays. We'll get into why that's key. I am leaning towards this build, but I'm not like 100% certain what's going to be more competitively viable. If it's either going to be this or like the more condensed list that uses the evil hero stuff, just because this technically does run a bit more bricks, right? Like your Super Poly now is an added brick, your Dark Supremacy is an added brick. You don't really want to open Necrom, but it's not that bad. You can kind of dump it off of something, whether it's like a droplet or your Ferris or search Stratos, you can get into Ferris or Hero Lives, whatever it may be. Your Infernal Rider, unfortunately, is also another brick. Um, yeah, you guys get the picture. There's the deck has got a bit more bricks at this point, but at 50, we can get away with it because you are now maxing out on your Evil Assault and your Adolescent Gold as six more starters to the traditional Omni Hero build that we're used to seeing. Yeah, just a good sample again, taking a board breaker approach, no hand traps. I still like the deck kind of still loses to the same old traditional threats such as Shifter, Droll and Lockbird, Talents, Sea Hand, Rip your one starter. Still, unfortunately, a big problem in the deck. The deck ceiling's a lot higher. Yes, absolutely. It's a lot more fun. I think the deck also has now a better chance against a very hand trap heavy format, but the culprits are still like the threats and usual culprits are still there, which is you're gonna be your Droll and Lockbird, it's gonna be your Shifter, it's gonna be your Mulch Armies, things like that. But we're gonna talk about how we can still address that with this build. Cool. So enough about this build. I want to also go into the more condensed version of what I'm thinking for Heroes post Supreme Darkness. This version here is taking advantage of the one Adusted Gold with three Evil Assaults and then the one Doom Prison and nothing else. So you are playing 43 with your non-engine here still looking quite good, with your eclipses to be able to break boards and dodge things such as Veilers, Imperms, Mourners. You got your Call By, of course, can't leave home without it. Then you got your droplets to break boards or even set it, pass. It's an additional layer of interruption for your end board, quite good. And then you got your talents. Again, just really good in a simplified game state. Also a board breaker going second, going first, simplifies the game state, gets you to see your opponent's hand, learn what they're on, where they want to go, and you can even like recustomize your end board to suit whatever hand they're working with. You rip one obviously from their hand, which also eliminates the threat of additional hand traps, which we know this deck is fragile to. And because this deck is more condensed, the way to think about this deck is you're still going to play your traditional lines of Omni Hero, where you're kicking things off with your Vision Hero line of plays, and then your backup plan is your Fusion and Destiny line of plays, either through Fusion Destiny or otherwise. If you're like maybe dumping these in Grave manually and you're fusing that way. But you're gonna notice like there's no Liquid Soldier here. There's no what's it called? Wing Karibo. I think post Supreme Darkness, that debate is a thing of the past, just because in the condensed quote unquote competitive version like this, where you have higher likelihoods of seeing your power spells such as a Hero Lives, Fusion Destiny, as well as your Evil Assault in comparison to the 50 card variant. What you're going to see is your lines of play still feel the same as they have with the last deck that we were just talking about for this current format, which is this one. But instead of using Cross Crusader in your in turn zero in like your opening turn, if you're going first, instead of using Cross Crusader to add your Wind Kariba or your Liquid Soldier, what you're doing ultimately is um, adding your Evil Assault to be able to use that as well, a potential extender if something happened to your Vision line of play or you just don't have access to your Destiny line of play through your Doom Prison summon. Or even better, if you do open your Evil Assault and then you do find a way to get access to Out of Gold immediately can search out your Dark Supremacy, which we've sided. You're gonna notice it's in the side in this build just because arguably you don't want to see another brick aside from like favorite contact, or even like your Neos, for example, going second, because that one additional card, guys, matters. When you're going second, you want six workable cards that can push into your opponent's board. It might be a little bit tough if you saw this and maybe like another one, like I don't know, a Neos or like your Poly or your Miracle Fusion or your favorite content. It gets a little bit kind of dicey at that point if we have that many bricks, which is why I opted to side it. And I only want to kind of see it if I know I'm going first. Another aspect that you probably saw in this build and also the last more complete build with this one is the siding of Dark Calling. Not only is it a thrust target, but we are playing the malicious, which is really nice because it just means that you could potentially use your Adulthood Gold to grab your Dark Calling and then to quickly tutor out your Malicious Bane if you've discarded Adulthood Gold to the graveyard and not have to worry about fusing off the hand or the field. So you're going to use the Dark Calling to actually get your Malicious Bane on the field to have an additional push into their board as another board breaker. So imagine theoretically in the world that like you open up without us to gold, okay, they let it slide, whatever, it's just adding a card. And then you quickly go into your Malicious Bane. Not only is it a nice moment where your opponent might consider to impulse you because you're using Dark Calling to fuse, therefore making your fusion plays a lot more likely to happen. But you could potentially pair like your Dark Calling or even your Malicious Bane with like a Droplet or an Eclipse if they try to imperm or do something to the Malicious Bane to try to help you break into your opponent's board. So I kind of like it. That's how my thought process is kind of going in terms of allowing you to use your engine to do a multitude of things, right? Like going first, your engine is allowing you to get end pieces onto the board. In this case, Super Poly and Dark Supremacy. But in this case, going second, we also have the opportunity to leverage the new Evil Hero package to actually get into our Dark Calling, to break into boards, and to allow for those additional moments of bait where your opponent could interact with you, could waste interactions that are not necessarily the bread and butter of this deck. Like we don't care if something happens to Malicious Bane. We're trying to go full combo here. We're trying to establish some of our bigger, stickier cards, such as our Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, our Wake Up, our Neo Swingman, our Sunrise, our Infernal Rage, things like that. Cool. Let's go back to the competitive list. So here's like obviously the thing to keep in mind with both these two lists that I just shared. The well, let's start with like the more competitive one. So the more competitive one is obviously like the things that it has for it is well, you got more engine starters. It's a clean 43, so you've significantly improved your ability to play through hand traps within the vision line. And then you also have your Fusion Destiny line as backup, just because Evil Assault again is a starter slash one card extender. But the drawback here, folks, is your evil assault and your Adacid Gold and your like Doom Prison Edition, it still leads into the same line in this more competitive build, right? This is where we start talking about Vision Hero Vion. This little dude, unfortunately, like I have a love-hate relationship with this guy. Like what Heroes right now is missing, and people could debate me on this, like leave a comment on this video if you think otherwise. But people will tell you, oh, heroes needs a negate. Well, we have negates. We've got protection of the elements and we have dark supremacy. They'll tell you, oh, we need ways for us to play on our opponent's turn. Like we want to like fuse on our opponent's turn. Yeah, sure. Perhaps. Definitely not a bad option. But the problem with Omni Heroes particularly is Vision Hero Vion. Your line of play through the Vision Heroes is extremely linear. A hero lives or Stratos always goes into the exact same cards every time. You don't have any choice. You don't have a choice, right? Hero lives goes to Stratos. Stratos goes into Ferris. Ferris goes to Increase. Increase goes into Vion. Vion dumps. Vion then tries to add Poly. Poly tries to go into your fusion plays. It's textbook. Like I'm not making this up. Like there's nothing that you can do around this except to maybe leave an increase in the back row if you have the necessary cards and extenders. Then go into like Fusion Destiny or go into your Link climb plays and try to bait cards out. But the reality is the good players are going to know what you're on when they see this guy come out, or they see you attempting to make this guy come out, and they're gonna clap this guy all day, every night, right? Or if they have impulse, they'll hit the poly. Or they'll hit the increase trying to come out from the front row or when it is on the front row, trying to bring out Vion. Right? Like this is what we're talking about in terms of the issue with this deck and the format and formats to come in the future is like Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't play like this anymore, guys. And it's why I'm playing things right now that are helping me like improve as a player in general. And I've been quite competitive in like the locals and regional scene. Like I've been topping quite consistently with other decks. I even took to YCS Niagara Voiceless and did pretty well with it. Um, I've been just again, I keep experimenting with other decks because of this inherent problem with this deck is it's the Vision Hero package, guys. It is the problem. Problem is the engine's too big and it's just too linear. It's not even too linear. It's definitively linear. It's completely 100% linear. And so if you are going to play this more competitive build, be aware that like you are now further doubling down on the requirement of your Vision Hero Vion in resolving. Because if it doesn't, and now you just have more cards in your deck, unfortunately, such as your Adacid Gold, your Evil Assault, and your Hero Lives, that all lead into this one little dude here. And if he gets stopped, you better have Fusion Destiny. And even then, like the lines under Fusion Destiny get you DPE and then maybe Plasma. And we know Plasma is not a good end board piece unless it's a simplified game state where like you've ripped one from your opponent's hand on talents and you know exactly what your end board is stopping in their hands. Like you know exactly what the trade-offs one to one are going to be with your end board pieces versus their hand when they do go second. Because we're obviously going first with this deck. So food for thought. Yes, this is more efficient. There's more areas where you could potentially get hand traps and bait hand traps, but the problem then becomes is against the experienced player, they're gonna wait all day for this guy to come out, which is not good. The I guess like less competitive version, but in my opinion, it's still potentially viable and is, in my opinion, could actually be the more competitive version is the 51. The 51 does not have that problem. Although it's going to be less efficient in getting to our classical end board through like the Omni build and the Omni engines. It technically is taking advantage of more starters. It is a bigger deck, but technically now we are getting that value from the evil hero stuff, right? We are, for example, able to um, evil hero, evil fuse into infernal backlash to simply add the dark supremacy if we need to, which is a negate. It's a pretty good negate too. It can negate more than one card if you have, I believe, multiple evil hero cards in the graveyard. In this case, you're gonna have your dark fusion and you're gonna have your evil assault. So that's like a two-guard negate. It's like a Desiree, basically. It's not bad. Like this is our version of Fiendsmith Desiree. You're also going to be able to get access to super polarization. Again, a pretty good form of interruption. And then one thing you can also keep in mind is like, yeah, I've opted to just put in hero stuff, but maybe like you, I don't know, you figure out a way to fit in cards such as Garura or like actual super generic super poly targets. Because one thing to keep in mind, folks, with Evil Hero Neos Lord as your one super poly target is going second. You may very well see this card in your hand as a brick, not have anything to do with this card, and are going to be required to actually use the super poly to break into your opponent's board. Like this is not a bad card on its own, aside from the restrictions that hero players put on themselves, right? So maybe we actually take out a law or something. I don't know, do something to put in like a mud dragon or a Garura. Like, I'd bet mud dragon's probably even more generic than Garura, but like maybe this is actually not that bad, right? Because now all of a sudden, if you do catch the brick going second, guess what? Now you could potentially discard a card, like maybe like a Shadow Mist or a Mally, and then now all of a sudden your mud dragon is live. This will debilitate you with your, I believe, what you call it, your Cross Crusader plays. I believe this one is gonna have some issues with that. But other than that, like you still have plays. Like if you, yeah, I believe this is gonna be offline, but your Ferris is gonna be online. You go into like your Ferris plays, for example, land on Plasma, land on Fusion Destiny, or DPE, I mean, apologies, and still play with Mud Dragon. And the other thing too is Mud Dragon actually insulates you from cards such as Veiler, Mourner, Imperm. So now all of a sudden this one brick going second is live. Food for thought, right? Let's save that. I feel like I just talked myself into it. Definitely gonna play a Mud Dragon. Um, but yeah, ultimately the takeaway here is although this is a higher deck count and we're maximizing on the adjusted gold just to minimize the risk of seeing these bricks, like this guy, this guy, this guy, this thing, you are getting that added value from the Evil Hero package where it's not just giving you bodies on the field to go into your Link Climb plays into like your Infernal Devicer to add, or like your Cross Crusader to search, but it's also giving you value in the shape of the negate as well as super polymerization, which is not that bad, arguably. Cool. So those are my three lists. Again, just to recap, we've got the extended Supreme Darkness list, which takes advantage of all the different layers of interruptions that we're gaining access to, including the brand new Neos Lord, which is basically a fuse one off your opponent's board and then a Change of Heart, which is pretty cool. Definitely a welcomed addition. And then we got the more competitive play, but in reality, it's just got more starters, extenders, but still loses to the same old threats. Yeah, not sure what's really going to be the most favorable in the long run. We will have to see. And again, I think with the last piece of tech and advice that I could leave you guys with is Dark Calling is easily going to be like another power spell that we could side in going second, just because we already often use Fusion Destiny to get into DPE to try break into boards. Like Fusion Destiny should be seen as a board breaker as well as a card into your engine, first and second. Dark Calling could also be seen on that front as well, where you're using existing resources that you've dumped from your hand into the grave to banish them. You get into Malicious, which is a very tricky card to deal with and easily baits out your opponent's interruptions once they've established them or even hand traps. Paired with other things, it's going to be really hard for them to actually stop your other main lines of play, such as your fusion spells and your vision line, once you do resolve this or try to at least go into it, forcing out certain interruptions. Yeah, that's those are my lists, and then obviously we go back into like the classic list pre Supreme Darkness and how I'm thinking about it. Awesome. Without further ado, let's get into the testing format. So, um, I don't think I need to at this point get into like what my combo line is under like the current format list. Actually, let's do it because I do want to talk about how to actually navigate hand traps in the current format and what the skill set that we're going to develop here actually translate into not only the deck building, but how we actually should be thinking about the new engines that we're adding post Supreme Darkness. So let's go into solo mode. The very first thing that I do when I do see a hand, and we're going to actually use this exact same hand. This is a beautiful, beautiful hand to talk about what we're doing here in terms of hand economy, but also in terms of how we actually mitigate risk and check for hand traps when we're playing this deck. So right off the bat, we got one starter. We got Fusion Destiny, which is starter slash extender. Ferris, other starter, and then Malicious, which is very, very good fodder, and then a droplet. If this was a talent, guys, I can guarantee you right now we're winning this game. Unless they hit us with the usual culprits, such as Droll or even like a Shifter. That's a whole other conversation. Or even like a Mulcharmy Flaw Draw. So that's a whole other conversation. But all good. We're gonna start with this hand. Most people might think, oh, we want to start with our normal summon. This is completely incorrect. You're gonna start with Ferris. Here's why. If we go into Ferris, now all of a sudden we have the option to go and play through this through our Link Climb plays if we do get hit by Imperm, Veiler, Mourner, or Ash. This also doesn't prioritize a search or your normal summon right up front, which means you could savor your normal summon in case we need to search out Vion to be able to normal summon Vion if this line of play is stopped, right? So this checks hand traps and it allows you to hold that resource, which is your normal summon, back to be able to use it in case of an emergency. Oh, another thing, we dropped the increase to one in like the post Supreme Darkness list just because you're already playing like, I don't know, 43 to 50 cards. So it only made sense to maybe drop this to one just to improve efficiency. If you see it, you see it. You've got other engines now to, play still. So yeah, again, we're playing through Imperm, Veiler, Ash here, even Ogre. So if this gets Ogre, that's fine. At least we can now go into like a malicious, and then go into Stratos, search Plasma, and then just fuse using like Denier, Neos, and then we land on DPE Plasma, which is still pretty good. And now your opponent went -1 because they committed a hand trap. But in this case, let's say we do get stopped here by the usual culprits, which is Imperm, Veiler, Warner, which again, like there's more of those cards than say like Shifter or Droll and Lockbird. That's why if you're able to prioritize on the usual threats over the longevity of like a big tournament, like a regionals or anything bigger than that, you're setting yourself up for success because what's happening then is your lines of play are now being optimized for the more common threats over the lesser common threats. Because the odds of you seeing Droll game one is actually even less than game two and three. Because most people know that a card like Droll doesn't hurt everything. Like it doesn't hurt Lab, for example, it doesn't hurt like back row decks. The other aspect here to think about is even post side, like when they do know you're on heroes and they do understand that Droll and Lockbird is going to be a very, very good threat against you, it's still one card versus the 12, which is Ogre, Veiler, Imperm, Ash, right? That's 12 cards that could be satted in against you instead of the three Droll and Lockbirds they should be accounting for, right? So that's how you need to be thinking about ratios and cards mathematically as well to prioritize your plays. So in this case, let's say we do get ashed, right? If they ash your increase, which is 100% a choke point, you now all of a sudden have one of your three Malleys, shout outs to Malley being at three again, to be able to land on the exact same M board as you've always done. So you got two bodies on the field, no problem. We just played through Ash, right? Special summon the Malicious. Malicious tags out. You go into your Vion. Now all of a sudden, your Vion is your normal summon. Boom. And then normal summon Vion. We're going to complete the loop. I call this completing the loop, going full circle, where you want it in your graveyard, both Mally and Denier, to be able to loop the Mally and to be able to get into DPE, to be able to recycle bodies. So you could also have bodies to link climb, things like that. And now then all of a sudden this card becomes fusion fodder for your light fusion plays through polymerization. So we'll banish, right? Yeah, see guys, we successfully played through Ash against a good player who knows what they're doing, who are stopping your increase from bringing out your Vion. We couldn't have been able to do this if we had normal summon Stratos, and let's say they hypothetically had something on top of the Ash, it's a little bit tough, right? Because like maybe they don't Ash or do anything to Stratos, and then you add something, I don't know, you add Denier, add Liquid Soldier, okay. But if they still only had Ash and they stopped your Vion or increase with it, you're kind of in trouble. Like if they hit increase, you just wasted your normal summon. You cannot use your link play to bring Vion out. So you're essentially just stuck into hoping that you have Fusion Destiny in hand, which is not as good as an end board, right? When you see cards, you have to envision your end boards. Because if we can't resolve Poly or can't get to it, your end board with Fusion Destiny is Plasma DPE, which is fragile to Board Breakers, fragile to like a singular imperm that could stop Plasma, things like that. Your best bet as an end board, and we're going to show you what it is this, right? You go into your link plays, always go cross first, reveal this guy. What's interesting post Supreme Darkness is you're actually able to reveal Neos, Evil Lord. Pro tip, I would say depending on how you what you lead with, like let's say post Supreme Darkness, and you'll see this in a second, you lead with like the hero stuff. Don't show them your Neos Lord guys. Show them the old school Neos, so that way they don't anticipate your uh evil hero stuff, or the vice versa. Like let's say you have to open up with evil hero stuff. Don't show them the Neos, show them evil hero, Neos Lord. So that way they make assumptions. They might like make assumptions in their head that like, oh, this guy's on the new support. Maybe it's a brand new deck, and maybe I might stop the evil hero stuff and not the classical Omni stuff. But in reality, the Omni stuff is still the bread and butter in this deck. Cool. So here we're gonna go banish Mali again. Boom, boom, boom. We'll get two bodies. We got the Neos. We got Fusion Destiny to get to Denier as well, which is pretty disgusting. Like that was a disgusting first hand, guys. Again, shout outs to having a clean 40 deck. Like that's the benefit of it, is you see lines into your vision line, you see lines into your Destiny line. Probably going to this guy. Sorry, guys, very informal. I probably could be optimizing my hands and everything, but I'm just kind of not right now, so that's fine. Hmm, kind of messed up already, but that's okay because we do have access to Fusion Destiny. Because I just saw that Denier is actually already in the grave. Show must go on. We'll continue. We'll lead with our polymerization. We're actually gonna land on a double law play, which I'll show you guys what that looks like. Go into this, add the trap. Now our Neos board wipe is live. We'll go into this dude. If you're on the Wing Karibo stuff, level 6 and whatnot, you could potentially did this backwards and went Sunrise, then Wingman. You don't take advantage of Law that way, but you take advantage of the Karibo ogre-esque pop. Up to you. I don't like it, but I know some people do that. Okay, and then we're gonna go this. This line, by the way, definitely plays more into Nib. I'm very aware, guys. Again, just keeping this informal. We're just hanging out here today. Nothing too serious. Um, okay. Again, we're gonna have to do something a little bit unorthodox here. We're gonna actually go deniers to fix our fusion material. We'll put that to top of the deck, not bottom, and then obviously we'll go Fusion Destiny here. Now we landed on full combo anyways. Okay. Special summon that. We obviously haven't committed our driver play yet, so we can get double Dark Claw. Always love that. You'll set, you'll pass priority, attempt to go into the end phase. You check for nib. This is where you check for nib, guys, because one of the benefits of heroes is element of surprise. Maybe they have a nib in hand. I don't know the best nib moment. They're gonna hold it. They're gonna hold it to the end, and now you have the capability to make DPE chain two to their Nibiru, thus insulating your entire board. If they try to nib early, luckily we played in a way that gets us into our polymerization plays before that many summons. And then you also saw, if we didn't necessarily have fusion destiny, there was a route where you could actually get into DPE first. So I would actually recommend that your polymerization creates DPE, it hard presses DPE first, and you loop it with driver to get into your Sunrise and your Infernal Rage plays, so that way DPE could still remain as potential end board value if you do get nibbed at a point where it does mess up your Wake Up Fusion or like your Sunrise Fusion or even like your Wingman Infernal Rage Fusion attempt, right? So always go for DPE first with Polymerization if you can. I did do a greedy end board here where I do get the traditional stuff plus double law, but just keep in mind that you should be prioritizing this guy first ahead of this guy or the Infernal Rage. So that way you can further mitigate the risk of Nibiru. But if you get this far and then they go nib when you attempt to go end phase, all you got to do is just you chain this. Chain this, these two go to grave, these leave. Sorry, guys, looks like dual book is atrocious and it's lagging. And then we go new chain, mandatory one, sorry, not mandatory, wake up one, two DPE in main, of course, because we nibbed and we insulated ourselves against nib. Oh gosh, this lag is horrendous. Then we'll add our one copy of mass change. And then we can actually set it. Go end phase. Then we go into draw. I would like probably shotgun mass change here or hold it, whatever you want. Probably no correct answer there. You get a search. I'm doing this in draw so you don't play into talents. Grab your liquid or your Stratos or something. And then obviously your DP comes back in. Standby, same end board. The only thing you're missing out on here is maybe like a Sunrise or a Wind Creep at level 6. But you've insulated against Nibiru. So now we've played through the 12 main culprits of Ogre, Veiler, Ash. Exactly showed you how to do it. You get around it through your Link Climb plays by holding back your normal summon and ensuring that Vion is definitely going to resolve after you've checked for that initial hand trap interrupt that they might have, because the likelihood of them having two or even three hand traps becomes a lot less because they already wasted one, right? Simple math. And then we've also now insulated against Nibiru, which is also a very common hand trap because we've prioritized DPE first and foremost to be able to insulate all our end board pieces. So in this case, this is a great end board. It's what I usually like to end on. We had the option of double law if we didn't get nibbed, of course, because the driver would be there. We can like reset the mass change for our second Dark Law. So that's like 1 to 2 hand trips, a pop, board wipe, and then the droplet that we set, which is a negate, which is going to be incredible to do. And then obviously they're under a one-way shifter, which is pretty devastating to a lot of decks, not all, but a lot. Cool. So this is my thought process into hand traps. One, I guess, cool thing that you could also do if um you open up post side your A Hero Lives or your Hero Lives and your Mask Change. So let's say we have this as well as this plus any hero. Is you open up A Hero Lives, you go into Shadow Mist. Let's say this is being special from the deck. No effect. You tell opponent I'm not using its effect because it's optional. Then you go like this. Boom. Now all of a sudden you've insulated yourself from a few things. Veiler, Ogre, DD Crow, as well as Droll and Lockbird. So this is your Droll line, right? If you see a hero lives in mass change, you're Droll proof. You lead with Dark Hawk because you know you have a second one anyways in case you do get nibbed. Or you got the second one. So you don't care if this gets nibbed off because you have a second one that you can potentially still end on or even recur back turn 3 and beyond. Because then here you'll add, then once this gets sent to the grave, you'll add, right? You'll add what you need. You either add like Stratos or Ferris. Then you go with your typical lines of play. I don't need to get into it again. But now you're not going to get drolled. They're going to be like, oh, on res draw, while draw needs to sit in the grave for you to resolve it. So now all of a sudden they've got dead hand traps, or let's say they have Veiler draw, they're cooked. That's two hand traps that you now just shut off because you're playing very conservatively because you led with a hero lives and you've maxed out on the mask changes post side. Very, very key, guys. Very, very key post side here. If it comes up, take advantage of it. Awesome. Now let's get into the not the competitive version, but like the complete version, because I think it's still competitive, but it's also worth talking about and showcasing the value that you're getting off of the evil hero stuff. So the evil hero stuff does two things. Yes, it elevates the ceiling, but it also allows you to play through more hand traps. But when I say more hand traps, it's the typical culprits. It's not mulch armies, unfortunately. It's not even Nibiru. It's not Droll and Lockber. It's not Shifter. Those threats, unfortunately, are still going to be hurting this deck with the new support. But I think the new support is close to mandatory, in my opinion. Evil Assault is close to mandatory from my professional experience with this archetype in the upcoming format, just because, again, it allows you to push through more hand traps, thus wasting your opponent's hand economy. Like if they're just throwing hand traps at you and you're able to push through them because of your increased number of starters, you're probably winning the game because you're gonna end off on a very, very strong board and they're gonna start their turn with two, maybe three cards, right? That's very, very important to keep in mind is the more they're committing your way when it comes to hand traps, the less optimal their chances are at breaking your board if you do land on those critical pieces, such as the DPEs, the super poly, the negate, your favorite fusion trap, everything like that. Cool. So let's do this. I want to do a test hand with two cards. I'm gonna do a hero lives, a malicious, and adjusted gold. So you guys remember this list? What did we do? We maxed out on everything. We maxed out on Evil Assault, we maxed out on Hero Live. So like we have a lot of really good starters maxed out at three, right? And again, this list isn't playing the one adjusted gold, like the 43 card one. This is playing the 50. So let's say we've got like a two card combo here. 2.5 technically because we have Mally in hand. A few things are gonna happen, right? We'll go Hero Liz. We'll pay half. No biggie. We'll say it's game one, right? So it's before side, so the threat of droll is not as likely. We'll have to kind of if you see a hero lives, you're usually gonna have to kickstart it because with it, just because if you let's say only had the Stratos, I would say don't commit your normal summon yet because you have Adusted Gold. You could potentially get into your evil hero line of plays to bait out interruptions and take advantage of that new increased ceiling before you even show that you're running the tried and true classical stuff that more often than not good players already know how to stop because it's so linear. So if anything, let's actually do that. Let's say we're not starting with a hero lives, but the point I'm trying to get to is like if you open a hero lives, you kind of have to start with it because the condition of a hero lives is if you control no face-up monsters, which means you can never lead with evil assault and have that potentially resolve without maximizing your hand econ because now all of a sudden you theoretically committed two cards just for one push into your end combo, right? It's just incorrect. It's incorrect logic to not start with the hero lives if you have evil assault. You have to start with the hero lives because the cost is life points. The cost is not a discard, first of all. And then you want to take advantages because you don't want a dead card in your hand because this could potentially fill up your board if your opponent lets it resolve. So let's do this. Let's start with Stratos because but again, that was just a fair warning with the hero lives is that is always going to be your like number one play if you see it always. Not Fusion Destiny, not Evil Assault, none of that. If I see this, what I'm gonna actually kickstart things off with is Adusted Gold. Here's why, because your Stratos and your Adusted Gold are both searches, which means they do the exact same thing if we're against the game state that has Droll. You're gonna have to accept it, right? You know what? This hand is losing the Droll. Doesn't matter. We're gonna have to still push forward and check for hand traps. Again, post Supreme Darkness here in the same way that we've have in previous formats. We're gonna still check for hand traps, and the moment we keep pushing forward step by step, we're gonna address and have like a mental checklist of all these other hand traps that could potentially could hurt us. But I'll tell you one thing, seeing this, I'm a lot more confident than just seeing this, which is Stratos and Mali, because this as your one combo starter, like if you just have like one Stratos and like the rest is like malicious, I don't know, Denier, a Vion, maybe like a like let's say favorite contact, that's 5 cards. It's a problem because that means your whole hand loses to one interrupt. And they don't even have to get it right. You lose to if they imperm this, you lose. The Ash increase, you lose. The imperm Vion, you lose. This is why with 50, we're still also prioritizing things like Eclipse, Droplet, could also dodge, Eclipse dodges, talents, draws two, or even checks their hand for more threats. You're still playing those cards to help you because this deck doesn't really have one card combos because this guy, this guy is a very, very big and painful choke point of the deck. Great card, I love him, but it's double-edged sword. He will cost you games if you can't resolve him. You don't have Fusion Destiny. Anyways, we'll go back to this. So 2.5 card combo. We'll go like this. We'll get our Evil Assault. All right, we'll go Evil Assault. Again, we haven't committed our normal summon, and that's a very good, by the way, strategy in any deck. Like if you can hold back your normal summon, it just means that you have a resource up your sleeve that you can kind of cost-free leverage, right? Like in the format when Snake Eyes was at full power, like Snake Eyes and Papa were at three. Like so many times you'd see players just try to go like Witch, OSS, Wanted. They'll do all these things, but they're baiting stuff out. Like their cards are ashable, easily ashable and impermed. Just for them to like normal summon Snake Eye Ash, go full combo, right? We now have the opportunity to do something similar. Not to the same effect, but something similar with Evil Assault and the Evil Hero package added because the whole Evil Hero stuff could potentially like you can see it as it's fake, right? Like you could pretend like it's actually impactful to the bottom line of your end board, when in reality it's fake because you really just need polymerization to resolve. You want to get DP on board with Fusion Destiny or the Vision line like by dumping like Mali Denier. You want to still resolve this guy who's very much a pain in the butt. All the evil hero stuff in like the 50 card list, you could argue it's fake, but it's great, great bait to get all those interruptions out the way. So we're gonna go Doom Prison, we're gonna special summon it. Cool pro tip is with Evil Assault, it allows you to add to hand or special summon, which means under certain game states, this right here is a perfect modern card to allow you to pick and choose your best lines of play under the new Mulcharmies, right? Like if they go old Mulcharmy, okay, special summon from the deck. Done. You saved yourself a draw with your opponent, gaining a +1. If they go new Mulcharmy, okay, you add it to your hand, potentially a decent normal summon. Not a great normal summon, but it's decent. Anyways, I digress. So you go effect, you send for cost. This is what's awesome about this. You send for cost either Mali, Mist, if you're playing like the more streamlined version, which is like 43 cards or whatever. But in this case, I'm playing like the full package, so I can actually go Sinister Necrom and start getting into some like scary looking lines. But in reality, again, I think they're fake. They're not real. They're not real threats if I'm going up against it. But the opponent doesn't know that, right? Like your opponent thinks like you're using new cards to like get into some crazy new stuff that nobody's seen before. So you'll send this for cost. They're gonna let this effect resolve because they're gonna recognize this thing's being sent for cost. You'll declare it. They could actually ash here, right? Again, you're baiting out hand traps. They could ash here. Let's say we have also this in hand. We're gonna need it later. You guys will see why. So it's like, sorry guys, it's like a 2.5.5 card starter. So like you need Addis Gold, Stratos, or Hero Lives, and then just two other heroes. It's gonna come up. It's fine. And then you're gonna go Infernal Rider effect to add your Dark Fusion. You've got two bodies here. You commit your Dark Fusion. They might impulse this. right? I love this because they could impulse this. They might be like, oh my God, he's touching his extra deck. I'm gonna impulse. And all of a sudden impulse is offline for your main classical Omni hero line of plays. So you've insulated Vision. So to kind of recap, Evil Assault is starter, extender, it's bait, it's doing so much for you. Plus, we still have two additional cards in our hand, three actually, that could be non-engines such as talents to again further reduce your opponent's hand economy by ripping one. Could be a brick, sadly, could be a set one that could help your end board. It could be an eclipse to dodge. Again, those nine culprits, Veiler, Imperm, Warner. You guys get the picture. They might impulse here, but let's say they don't. Now we can go into the new support, Backlash, Infernal Backlash, boom, a lot of negate. You can't use this yet because you need four other monsters, but eventually you'll also be able to banish this set super poly. Set, right? This is key. It's a draw line too, guys. Now that I'm thinking about it, we also played under draw. Like let's say we get drolled on Dark Fusion. I guess it doesn't work. You just end on Dark Supremacy, which is not good, but not nothing. Again, deck loses a draw. What can I tell you guys? They didn't give you any options to beat draw other than opening Mass Change and Hero Lives. But again, we still have access to that because we're still playing three of those. Would still highly recommend it. Cool. Well, again, let's pretend like we can still keep going. So that whole line was just fake, right? It was just to add Dark Supremacy and Super Poly. But it works to insulate now our normal summon later on in the combo. Um, again, we touch on the fact that like if you did get interrupted on like the simplified version, you don't add this or like your super Paul using this because they're cut. What you add is, or you try to basically use the evil hero stuff to bridge into malicious and Shadow Mist. But in this case, I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to like maximize the ceiling. I'm going in the route like I want to use the evil hero stuff to bait out interrupts and still land on my classical M board. With them having like, two to three cards left in their hand and they're just essentially out of hand traps because we're in such a hand trap heavy format. Boom. We'll go here into here you have an option you could go mist, but I want to save the mist for law because I love dark law. We'll just go another Ferris because when in doubt, Ferris is something that we can just banish out the grave and not have to think twice about it. You could easily also dump your Wing Karibo there and have that as an additional end piece. Yes, I'm fully aware before all like the Wing Karibo fanatics come at me in the comments section. Let's say we went Mali before Cross Crusader, guys. Bear with me. I'm just kind of keeping it cash here. And then here we'll go cross effect, bring out the denier. So that way we're maximizing the reset on the Mali. Then we go like this. So then you can add. Now you don't even need to use cross in this one. That's how good the deck is now. So now you have an option. You can either go Plasma on Crackback, Stratos on Crackback, add Neos if you want to go into from Devicer, save yourself a link play. So that way you can end on more bodies. But in this case, I'm just gonna add Plasma, whatever. I'll do these two. Boom. Reveal this or this. Doesn't matter at this point because we already kind of revealed that we're on both engines. We're on Evil, Heroes, and the classic Omni stuff. Okay. Here we can go like this. Get the Malia. Malia 3 is so cracked, guys. Holy. One of the best things that people do. That's why like, I still believe in this deck. I think, plan on post Spring Darkness getting my Nats invite for 2025 with this deck. I think it's very, very possible. I've seen the new decks like Rise of Malice. I think we stand a very good chance. Droll is not going to be in the format because of Ryzel and Malice, and the only threat that I think is really going to hurt this deck is Droll post side. Maybe if they see it against only three cards, like your game plan and something stopping you from playing this deck shouldn't be just because Droll's in the side of many decks, because they may not be, and they may not even see it. It's just three cards to losing to the usual culprits, which we know are like Impermash, Veiler, Mourner, whatever. Well, yeah, that's what have you. Cool. So I think we committed two mal. Oh, we only committed one mallet. Cool. We got another. So here we're actually going to keep our once per duel denier effect because our ceiling has been heightened with the evil hero stuff. We can actually use the infernal backlash as material for DPE. So because we baited out so many hand traps, including impulse with the evil hero line, we can now confidently, if they did resolve impulse, go for poly. You wouldn't have this, but you'd have like this or the denier, right? It's the same thing. Again, I digress with my perspective here. You'll go DP first. Like I said, you really want to have that quickly to insulate against Nibiru. You'll reset this. Cool. And we kept this Stratos on field. Very, very key that that guy stays on. Boom. We'll go into Infernal Rage, our classic trap adder. Effect, send for cost. Go effect for the miracle off the sunrise. Look at that, guys. We're back to our classical lines with this deck that we just know and love for all these formats that we've been playing this. Okay, but now here's the difference. You now can also go this, boom, banish, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll go 5. Ferris, we'll never need that guy. The pink one is always guilt-free to banish. You'll set this, set everything. You've got this. Could use this for like fusion material or for crackback. Could be a Stratos, is like a feather duster, whatever. Liquid soldier, Winkler, whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Again, we check end phase. Check for Nibiru one more time. Pass priority back to opponent. Attempt to go to the end phase. They don't got Nibiru. Okay. Go like that. We check for Nib. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. And then we'll go into the Shadow Mist if we haven't already used it. Technically, we have the Denier in the graveyard here as well, which means that we could have actually saved this as a search on our opponent's turn, but come on, guys. At this point, I'm just keeping it casual and let's just win more. Things don't have to be perfect. But perfect is always best. Then you got Law. You go draw phase, standby, DPE comes back. And then you reset for turn 3, either your mass change for playing double Law, or even better, your Miracle Fusion for like something, some kind of fusion. So what do we end on? Ladies and germs, we go Law, DPE, can end on a Sunrise or a Karibo. Miracle Fusion Crackback. Negate, finally, we got that negate, part of engine, super poly, favorite contact, 1 to 2 in hand because we could have had the miss search us on our opponent's turn anyway as well. Right, it's looking good. This is just the right type of ceiling increase that I think the deck needed. But just to recap, we still will lose to the usual culprits. It's just now you absolutely must understand that mental checklist that we just walked through of how to check for hand traps, how to prioritize the main threats and culprits first and foremost before you worry about the more niche culprits such as Droll, Shifter, everything else. Well, Charmies. Um, when you've done that, right, like now all of a sudden you are banking on gaining advantage and value from the Evil Hero package because opponents are just on more hand traps these days. Plus, they are, potentially not going to know what the new cards do, so they might be actually inclined to stop your Evil Hero stuff that is essentially adding you the Super Poly and the Dark Supremacy negate. But one thing's for sure, maybe I'm just an OG with this deck. I still believe your favorite contact, your DPE, your Law, as well as your like your Neo Swingman off the trap, those cards are just a lot. I'm more just confident in them if I am able to land on them than I am confident with just a super poly and a target card negate. That's just me. I've welcomed these two additions in the end board, no problem. And Evil Assault is an incredible starter. But like I said, that's how I'm thinking about it in terms of my line priority is I'm starting with Hero Lives, holding back my vision line because I want to protect and insulate Vion. I'll go Evil Hero stuff. They can get clapped by hand traps. I don't care. I'll still land on Law, DPE, favorite contact, and plus follow up and driver. Like that's I'm good with that. Like I'm seeing this without like supremacy and super power, I'm probably winning. That's it for me, folks. I think we've done a pretty good job kind of explaining where the deck is at today, which is kind of a mediocre spot, but where also the deck is going to be from my professional experience with this deck. So this is my 40 card list today in Rage of the Abyss format. No hand traps, pure breakers. Yeah, straightforward. Liking it. Very clean, very competitive. There is the complete package with the maximum ceiling when it comes to M boards. You are ending on this Dark Supremacy as well as Super Poly. You're also easily welcoming Dark Calling as well as Malicious to be able to additionally break into boards on top of your Fusion Destiny. And then finally, the more like streamlined competitive build, which still loses the traditional culprits and doesn't give you additional value for the Evil Hero engine. It's the 43 build list, pure breaker. Um, but I mean, arguably, it takes advantage of more extra deck slots, such as like two laws, the blast, not like the best card, but still could come up. Two targets, Fusion Destiny, and just again, all around much more streamlined, but less bricks as well, right? That's also key. Less bricks for sure. So yeah, that's it for me. If anybody wants to see these lists, feel free to hit me up on Facebook, or just rewind this video, leave a comment, or also follow me on Instagram. I'm probably the easiest to reach on Instagram, right? Just at Yugi Skull. Let me know your thoughts if you want these lists. I can definitely provide them at no cost. It's completely fine by me. But yeah, I'm very happy with the new support in Supreme Darkness. A lot of people online are saying like the cards conflict, the cards do this, the cards are not good enough. Blue Eyes got a link one, blah blah blah. This deck's not good. I mean, the deck's always not been the deck has never been that good. But it's no excuse, guys. Like I got my Nats invite for 2024 with this deck. I've topped heroes countless times with this deck and like tier zero formats, like with tier limits, when tier limits was like full power, when cash was full power. Like I've beaten those decks. So like to me, it's just gonna be another format where there is the really expensive best meta decks that will get hit by the ban list and they will fall off eventually. But then there's this, a deck that I just love and I know like the back of my hand and that I know well enough theory to be able to push against the good decks and I can take advantage of my opponent not knowing what I'm doing, especially post Supreme Darkness with this new stuff. Like this is good, right? We're in a good spot. Shifter Mulch Army is still a problem, the new one particularly, but you could still, I think, land on like a pretty mid-range board under mulch armies. Like you could potentially still get on to like a DPE and a negate under like the new mulch army. Like, that's fine. I'm sure. Like the trick is to survive, right? We're also playing like thrusts and thrust targets. If all else fails, you might go thrust, set one pass, survive a turn. You're good. You're Gucci. You might even just go Bakuska pass, mulch under mulch army and shifter. Again, guys, we've done this before, right? When like Cash when it was around and like Tempai was full power and a lot of people were playing that deck and the shifter was everywhere. Like this is what we did. We just went Bakuska pass. Okay, you got Imperm, you got Droplet, you got Board Breaker. Okay, you don't. Okay, go. Pass back to me. You're smoked. You get OTK'd. Um, it's just the way to think about it now, in my personal perspective, is there's no excuse, right? Like the deck is getting good support. The support is playable in Omni Heroes, and On top of that, like there's just no excuse in my opinion. Like this is the most well-served archetype in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Period. It's yeah, sure it doesn't operate like branded or like decks that like maybe like Centurion that can potentially like synchro or fuse on your opponent's turn, sure, but like the deck's never been about that, right? The deck's always been about comboing into like, decent, manageable, arguably fair end pieces and trying to really maximize those interactions that you can get out. Like you're always coming in from behind with heroes, just how it is. So it's just for me, it's no excuse. The deck's always been where it's at. Um, I kind of like that it's not tier one. It's a challenge to use this and win. You feel a lot better when you do win with it. We love this deck, and when we win with it, we feel even better than winning with like the main meta contenders. Um, and yeah, we're gonna take advantage of the element of surprise because nobody's gonna know what evil assault lines are gonna get into. We do. They're not. Um, maybe we go, like I said, Sinister Necron, they ash it because they're so scared of what's going to come out, which is going to get us to the negate, and they don't want that. So like they'll imperm this. It's gonna happen, right? They're not gonna know. They're gonna think like, oh, he's using new cards. He's prioritized new cards. They're gonna stop them, guys. You're gonna bait out so much with the new package just for you to play classical Omni heroes and win. While they have a lot less cards than we're used to in their hand. It will happen. I'm very much a big believer in the deck. It's just again the format is going to be very fast and it's going to be very cutthroat. But Konami clearly does care, in my opinion. They've given us the right support to basically do what we've always been doing, which is push through those hurdles and still get somewhere and inch out those wins, guys. Like the deck is not designed to win. The deck is designed to steal wins. Last time I went to regionals and got my invite with this, I kind of left feeling like, you know what? I didn't feel like I won with the deck. I feel like I stole the show with the deck, right? Like that is the beauty of Rogue, in my opinion, is you're stealing the show. You're not the center of attention. You're stealing the show. So yeah, guys, that's it for me. I'm gonna sign out at this point. Hopefully, I've given you guys my thoughts on some cool combos, the lines of play with this deck post Supreme Darkness. Um, yeah, can't wait for the new set to come out. I'll be buying these cards right at release. Potentially might buy like one or two boxes to try to pull them. Already have my eye dusted gold. Already got my Sinister Necrom. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm very excited to see where Heroes lands. And I know I can compete really well with this against all the different stuff that's coming out, such as like the Malices and the Ryzeals of the world. So yeah, guys, I'm Yugi Skull, and that's me signing out. I'll catch you guys on the next one.